Hi, welcome to my video, Python for Network Engineers. Or another title we could use this would be Why Python. And the reason I say why Python is because a lot of times I encourage students to take Python programming, and these are networking students, system administration type students, network security type students, and they take Python and they don't learn anything about networking. Networking is never even brought up. So really the purpose of this is going to be an attempt to bridge the gap between the programming and the networking world. And like I said a minute ago, many Python courses, they're taught by computer science majors, by web developers, and networking devices, Cisco routers, other vendors, Juniper, HP devices, none of that stuff is ever brought up in the course. This is not intended to be any type of a Python or a networking tutorial. This is going to be a brief demonstration of how Python can work to automate your networking. The intended audience for this is going to be people with a basic knowledge of networking and Python, or network engineers who are considering learning Python. I'm going to answer the question, why Python? Okay, so I'm going to start with a basic script here. And what I'm doing is I've created a script called Cisco Backup. And the purpose of this script, it's a Python script. All I want to do is back up a Cisco device and view the configuration. And there's not much to it really. The first thing I need to do is I need to do a couple of imports. I need to install NetMiko, and I'll post some links as to how you can install NetMiko. NetMiko is a really powerful tool that's you install in Python, and it allows us to connect and create secure shell sessions into Cisco devices. And it's a very powerful tool for networking engineers with automation. So once I have NetMiko imported into Python, and then I import the connection handler or connect handler for Python, I'm going to create a library, or a dictionary actually. And my dictionary, I'll just call this one Cisco, and this is going to map out a few parameters for my device. So I'm going to tell it that the device type is Cisco iOS, and the IP, the username, the password, and the secret password. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my connect handler object. And I'm going to name that netConnect. And when I execute this command, I'm going to create a secure shell session into the device. And then I'm going to call the netConnect enable method to log in to enter privileged exec mode. And then I'm going to use the command, I'm going to create a prompt variable, and that's going to call the find prompt method. Next I'm going to strip off the end of the prompt, the hashtag, the greater than symbol, because I want to just verify the host name of the device and not have anything left over. And then my next command is I'm going to print then the string connected to followed by the host name, and this is really the find prompt method without the extra characters. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call the method to disable paging on the device, and this will allow me to enter a command on the network device, in this case a Cisco router, and it will log in, and it will not require me to log in. It will not require me to hit the space bar every time I want to see the rest of a file. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to view the running config of my file. So I'm going to send the command using the netConnect, which is in reference to my connection handler that I've created here. And I'm going to send the command show running config. And whatever gets returned by that command will be called output, and then I will print output on my screen. So let's go and run this one. I'm just going to go here, run without debugging. And it's logging in, it's running the script, and it's going to attempt to connect it to the device switch 1, and just like that, it logged into it, it went into privileged exec mode, and it said right away here, I'm connected to switch 1. You can see I stripped the prompt off of it to get the actual true host name, and there's my device switch 1. So now that we've logged into a device, But the problem is this is one device. How do we go through and connect to multiple devices and get multiple configurations? So this next script is basically the original script, except I've added a few things to it. So the first thing, if you'll see that I've added, is I've created a device list variable. And basically device list is just basically a location of a file that I'm going to read from. So here is device list. It's a CSV file. I've got it in Excel, and here's a list of devices on my network. And I'm showing it in Excel as a CSV file. And then I've got usernames, passwords, and there we go. Then basically when you save it as a CSV file in the text format, it looks like this. There is absolutely no formatting in a CSV. It's just lines of text with commas to separate each column. So let's go and look at the read program that I've got here. So now instead of just reading from one file, I'm going to create a loop. So I'm going to open this file here called device list. I'm going to open it in read-only mode, and then I'm going to go through a loop structure. For each line in the file, I'm going to read the line, I'm going to strip the line, and then from that strip line, I'm going to split the string by the comma. So I'm going to take each comma value and call that a variable. So if I go back here and look at my CSV file, the first element, and so we'll go through the format, there's strip line. I'm going to read this line. And the first element is going to be the host name. The second element will be the IP address. The third element will be the manufacturer. The fourth, the device type. The fifth, the model. Sixth, seventh, and eighth will be my username, password, and my enable password. So now I can go through, and through each device, I'm going to identify the type. And now my library, or my dictionary, is going to be based on what I read from this CSV file instead of something static that I've added to my program. So now that I'm reading from this file, I'm going to be using the same net connect handler and the prompt and strip all of that. And now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to connect to each device individually and get multiple running configs instead of just one. Now the next thing I'm going to do with my program is I'm going to add some exception handling. Because if you've got any experience with programming, anytime you do something with the program and something fails, the program just crashes without an explanation. So we need exception handling. For example, let's say that this username is wrong. Let's say I've got an extra character in here, my username. What's going to happen is the program is going to log into this first device and it'll be fine. It'll get to this second device, it'll try to log in, the login will fail, and the program will just stop running. And we won't get to back up the other three devices where the username and password credentials are accurate. So what we're going to do to get around that is I'm going to create a try block inside of my loop. So instead of telling it before, we just said create your dictionary and create your connection handler and log into each device. I'm going to create a try block, and all of these commands are going to fall within my try block, and then I'll do some exception handling. And you can look up all the different exception types within the NetMiko site and everything. But the important thing that I had to do right here was I imported the exception handling right here, and I imported date time from Python, and because I wanted to start putting some timestamps on my exception handling. So I'm going to find the date time, and then I'm going to create the date variable that is going to be now, and then I'm going to convert the date format into a string, which is what this line is doing. And if we scroll down here, I've created my try block, but the additional code here is all about my exceptions that I've created. So I've got a number of exceptions. They're all very similar. I'm going to create an exception. So an authentication exception is going to print authentication failed. Please verify your credentials. But it's also going to open a file called error log. And I believe error log is up here at the top defined. So I've defined error log is in this location. So what I'm going to do is every time I throw an exception is I'm going to open the file error log, and I'm going to write the date followed by the host name with spaces in between both variables. Then I'm going to concatenate the IP address, and then I'm going to say my program Cisco Backup Pi generated a failure followed by the failure type. So depending on which exception I throw, I'm going to write to my text file that you threw an exception. Because if you're trying to read the terminal and everything, there's a lot going on. So I'm going to write something, then I can go back and look at my log file and check and see what's going on. Because I mean, the ultimate goal of this is if I'm writing something to back my devices up, I'm going to automate this using Task Scheduler, or if this is in Linux, I'd use Cron. But I'm not going to be going through and following this program every step of the way to make sure it's working properly. If it throws an exception, I want it to be recorded somewhere so I can see what's going on. And then the last thing I'm going to do to add to my program is I'm going to use the write function. So I've backed up my file, I've printed it, but that doesn't do me any good. What I really want to do is I want to save my backup somewhere so I can go back and see configurations. And the goal here is I want to back them up every day. So I want to automate this, but then I need to put a timestamp in the file name, because if I don't put a timestamp, I'll just keep overwriting each file. So what I'm going to do, I've already got the timestamp created, but I added a month variable to the timestamp as well as the date. And then I believe that's the only. Oh, and I did import the OS module. Actually, I think I had to import the OS module on the previous program where I started doing the writing to my error log. But anytime you write, you need the OS module. But I think I needed the OS module when I started the device list read. I can't remember exactly when. I probably needed it. Actually, I didn't. So did I need it here? I did not. So I only needed the OS module for the write method. But anyway, so now I've got my original program. I've got my try block. I've went here, I added some print functions to print the login credentials. But anyway, I'm still doing the same net connect, find my host name, turn off paging, show running config. And once that's all done, I'm going to write my config. So all I'm adding to this right now is really this little section of code. And I'm going to create this variable called directory, and that's going to be the location of my file. And that's basically my Windows location on my hard drive, but I'm going to add a couple of things to it. I'm going to add the month, followed by the host name of the device. Now that's my directory, but now I need a file name. So the file name is going to be the directory plus the host name variable. And then I'm also going to add a underscore followed by the date variable followed by the string.txt. And that's going to save each file in that location with the host name will be this host name, date, and text. Now I have this other if condition in here. So what I'm saying here is if the path does not exist. So if this dir does not exist, I'm going to make it. And the reason I have to do this is because every month I'm going to have to create a new folder. If I run this program every day, if I automate it and have this program run daily to back up all of my devices, then as soon as the current month ends and I start a new month, there won't be a folder existing. So I need to tell it to make that folder. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just open the file in write mode. I'm going to write config. Config is this variable right here. And then at the end, I'm going to close. So now let's see the program in action. And then of course I've got my error functions. So just for the heck of it, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change one of my user accounts and save my CSV file so we can see it crash and we can test everything. So I'm going to just go to run, and I'm going to run without debugging, and we'll see what's going on here. Obviously it's still going to print the configs, and if I scroll down here, it's moving faster than I can even see in my output. It's copying everything. If you can see, it's going faster than I can keep track of it. So it already ended the script, and I did get some devices. So I got, let's scroll up here. I got switch 1. I got the device AP8. And we looked in here, and if I scroll up, I got another access point. And if I scroll up even more, we'll see a connection to a device called switch 2. So it went through here, and if you notice, it didn't connect to switch 3. I probably threw an exception. So if I go to my documents folder, and go into documents, and let's just remind myself, don't save, where my files were saved. So I'll scroll this back down just to double check where my files are saved. And see Python backup. So if I go here to Python, here's my folder. So in my backups folder, I've actually created a subfolder, October 2021. There's the 3 devices that it did back up. And there's the config from 10.3, and here's the config from 10.10. If I go back here, and I can go to my errors file, and I received an authentication failure today on this device. 10.10.21 switch 3, the address of the switch, Cisco Backup generated an authentication failure. And there's a lot more I can do with this, but this is really just an introduction to give you an idea of what a powerful tool Python and NetMiko can be, and why it's very advantageous for anyone in the networking field to really take a look at Python and really consider learning it and take advantage of its abilities.